Yo, what's up, YouTube? What's up, Facebook? What's up, world? Matthew Allen here, Matthew Harrison Allen here for another video. Excuse me while I'm having coffee while I make my video. Um, check out my Facebook if you want to. It's Matthew Harrison. My Instagram is Storm Grabber. And then obviously my YouTube is Real Daily Media. If you're seeing that, you're probably, if you're seeing this video, you're already linked to the channel somehow. So please subscribe, like, and comment at your will. Participate at your will. So, the video I'm making today is actually about suicide. And not only, so it's suicide on two levels. It's suicide, dealing with suicide yourself, suicidal thoughts, or suicide, and then also dealing with suicidal people, which are two different subjects. Okay, so at the very root, if you're going to try to help anyone with suicide, that you're being confronted with in this occurrence, then that, you that'll be addressed in the later half. But if you plan on dealing with suicide, or you know that you might be dealing with people who are suicidal, you have to be mentally, you have to be on some sort of stable ground mentally. I don't see it fit. For instance, if you have violent tendencies, or if you are suicidal yourself, and by violent tendencies, I mean like temper issues, or like lack of self-control issues, and it isn't safe for you to be confronting someone else's suicidal demons, because you might snap, and that isn't the way to that. From my experience, like overwhelming manpower, like military style discipline, doesn't work that well with suicide. It usually forces it might work for some people, but it usually forces the person to create some sort of false defense, and later some false patronizing effect towards the punisher, towards the person who's trying to help them. So they basically put on, a mask or a face to try to please whoever's trying to help them. And then in reality, it's fake, and they're just putting on a front to try to, putting on a show to try to get the person off their back. And so at first, if you're dealing with any type of suicide or depression in your own life, first you need to ask yourself the first thing I would do is sit down and make a list of all the things that are in your life, and then a list of all the things that you feel like you're lacking. And from that first list, do some type of bullet point that shows it's a necessity, like food, water, shelter, transportation, job, whatever. And then the rest of them consider as blessings, or the things that you've earned in your life, or your own personal belongings or whatever. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve them, or you should keep them, but we're talking like physical necessities, not emotional necessities. That could be a whole nother list if you really want to get into it. And if you want to convey these steps over later to another person that you're trying to help, that may be what you want to do. But for like I said, for beginning, you need to assess yourself. So if you're having any type of depression or suicidal thoughts yourself, this would be the place to start, with physical necessities. And then if you want to have what are your mental or emotional necessities, or the things that you want or need in property, material, etc., etc. And then whatever you feel like you're lacking in your life, create another list. Whether that's a fancier car, better clothes, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, extra money, a different house or living situation, a different job, whatever it is, more muscle, less fat, better hair, whatever. You make a list of that. And then you'll see, what you'll learn is that you're probably not lacking that many you're probably not lacking that many physical necessities. The only time I was really lacking physical necessities when I was in some really toxic living situations, and on top of that, I was also victims of scams, like $5,000 scams. So my resources were messed up, and on top of that, my family was not really trying to listen or help me at all, because they were tired of my situation being put on them, or my situation being brought to them, I should say, even though I'm their child and they are the ones who had me as a child, which is kind of silly, but that's a whole nother video. So, but that being said, I still ended up receiving unemployment and EBT, and if I wanted to or needed to, I could have either walked or driven to my parents' house, banged on the front door and said, "Hey, I need food. I need to use the bathroom." And they would have done it. They would have said, "Matt, you're insane. You need to go to a mental hospital, but we're going to allow you to take some bread and a bag of chips and some lunch meat, and then you can shower and use the bathroom, but you got to leave. You can't stay here. Are you high? Are you drunk? What's the problem?" Because if I was high or drunk, they wouldn't want to hear any of it, because they know that I spent money on drugs or alcohol, and that I'm dealing with addiction, and that it's a joke for me to act like I'm in some situation. So, and then in terms of people on the street lacking physical needs, most of the time when they get money, they use it on drugs or alcohol. Drugs, which is alcohol, and they're usually there by choice. And for whatever reason that they're strung out or run down on, their clothes are shabby, or their health is kind of like off, or they're dirty, it's because they're religiously choosing to buy drugs or alcohol day in and day out, and they're not trying to better their own situation, or they don't care about. Now, that isn't the same as a child who gets kidnapped, or someone who gets raped or beat, or who lives in a molestation situation at the early chapter of their life, or someone who's in an abusive family. Now, that is a big issue. That's a problem. That's something or an abandoned baby, or a teenager who's introduced to prostitution or drug addiction at a young age, to the point. That's a whole nother issue that has to be dealt with at a family level, at a governmental level, but we're talking an adult here with somewhat of a life, because if any of those other things are at hand, then you should probably seek some type of help, whether it be from government programs or programs through your work, drug addiction help programs, whatever it is. They exist. The programs exist, and the help is there, and there's very little, like, for instance, if you don't have enough money to get food, you can get EBT almost the same day if you go to the welfare office. If you're out of work for some reason, there's so many job programs, unemployment in this country, where it is really, really hard there's food banks to make the excuse, "Oh, I'm dying here and no one's helping me," in the United States of America. So, that being said, if you make those lists, you'll come to see, okay, I actually have most of my physical needs met. And that is something to be thankful for. Praise God, hallelujah. Worship and thank God for what He has given you and supplied you for. Because you don't want to be that child on Christmas morning who has all these amazing Christmas presents and all these amazing things already, and you're not even thanking the person or the people or the person or the God that's giving them to you. If every good thing comes from God, And if you're not even thanking God and worshiping him for the things that you have in your life, then I mean, just think about it. I can't speak for God, but I know that if I was providing someone with food, water, and shelter, clothing, and all these amazing things in their life, plus all the other good things, I would appreciate it and want to give someone more if they were actually saying like, hey, thank you, and I worship and I praise you, God. Thank you for what you do in my life and what you've given me, as opposed to just assuming it's whatever. And so again, passing forward, so and after that, you need to ask yourself, okay, so what is causing my depression? Is it something that you am, or suicide? Because if it's, okay, so first and foremost, okay, so is it something about yourself? Is it your job or your life or your appearance or your money? Something about yourself that is making you look down on yourself. And then we get into the next topic, which covers both depression and suicide. And is it actually yourself, or is it someone else making you feel that way? Because there's two aspects to that question. There's the aspect that someone's keeping you at a place where you're not happy with yourself, and you're not reaching or going for what you want, or simply just taking what you want, or what, not by stealing or any means of evil, but you're just not taking or reaching or going for what will please you and make you happy because someone is evilly keeping you at bay where you are. For instance, I lived I'm not pointing a finger at any particular type of people or any, but there was a time when I was living in a sober living house and I was young spiritually and mentally, and I wasn't aware of the fact that such things existed, like witchcraft and demons and different spiritual entities. So I was at a place where I was making money, I was living clean and sober, I had jobs, but I just was like treading my water. I didn't know what I really wanted to do, and I was like stuck at a and I don't know exactly who is to point the finger at, but looking back on the situation, I think that people had me, that the world, the evil side of the world, had me at a place where I was just in the system. I was in the machine. And so so if you are dealing with depression or suicide yourself, you need to figure out, is it actually you, or is it other people or systems that are making you feel that way? At which point you need to realize, if it's you, you need to do some self-help, mental help, because even that is usually caused by other people or by other situations. Because if you realize that you're happy with your job and your living situation, but someone else is not, and that's some reason making you depressed, that's an issue. And you need to either address the fact that that person is still a part of your life, or you need to rebuke the demons that are attacking you. Because at the very root of all three of these circumstances, either you feeling bad about yourself, someone else making you feel bad about yourself, which the first one would be like someone brainwashed you to not go for what you really want and not please yourself in the first place, or three, you're suicidal or depressed or dealing with depression. So if you can figure out the source of it, that's a good start. If you can't, you need to rebuke those demons of depression and suicide. It's that simple. And when you're in private, you need to pray, God, please reveal to me who is using these demons and where these demons are coming from and why and for what reason. And ask God to arm you. And I'll pray for you too, if I remember to next time I'm in private. If not, I mean, I'll ask, I mean, I'll try to send the angels to you now, but, like I said, at the root of all of it, even before trying to figure it out mentally, is is demons. They're bad things. All good things come from God. I've been in situations where I am perfectly happy, and then just going around, I went and lived. This is one way I learned it. I came from a situation with heavy domestic violence towards me, and the person doing it was also very suicidal. This person was so mentally ill and violent, she needed to be in a mental hospital, but she was also at the same time, like, she was basically a victim who got to a point where she could either grow or victimize other people. And she chose to keep continuing to hurt, to create victims. And from my experience, from people who deal with a lot of trauma or go through a lot of trauma, they get to a point where they will either grow from their own trauma, or they will start victimizing people in the same fashion that they were victimized. And it's a hard point to choose from, where you either grow from your pain and your scars, and you become a part of the world, or in whatever you learn from that, or you join the evil people who hurt you too. And in her case, now, from my standpoint as who I am today as an untrained medical professional, but who I am as a Christian child of God, she would have benefited the most from being in a mental institution and from getting serious help. Now, me as her ex-husband, I wasn't in no place to do that. Well, actually I was, but she didn't accept it. She didn't accept mental help from her husband, and she chose to cheat. She chose to lie. She chose to not realize that my advice was going to be the best for her in terms of our marriage. And instead, she took it all into her own hands, and we're divorced now. And I don't know if she still loves me. I still love her, but I'm not like obsessed with her or longing for her like I was, because she broke my heart. And the love is now like a cousin or a sister, instead of, the diamond of my life. But that's her choice. I don't know if she's like, the way that she dealt with it was, go start being a whore again. Go out to bars, look for people to hook up with. I haven't had sex with a single person, let alone even kissed a single person, since I've been divorced with her. It's been 2 or 3 years now, and she's already, taken pictures, done all this stuff that is like her way of dealing with whatever. But my point is, so if yourself, you need to rebuke those demons. You need to cast those demons of depression to hell for eternity, and all information that they've gathered about you and stored about you. Cast those demons of suicide to all to hell for eternity each time you feel them. The Bible teaches us not to pray in public. It teaches us to pray in private, but it teaches us to cast out demons in public. So every time you feel an attack about depression or suicide, anytime you start to feel that depression or suicide come over your mind or your body or your life, rebuke them. Cast them to hell in the name of Jesus Christ for eternity. Out loud, in your mind, whatever it is. You cast them, I'm not saying like create a public disturbance or whatever, but rebuke every time in the morning. If you feel them there, it could be coming from a neighbor or a family member who deals with suicide and depression, witchcraft. Rebuke them and cast them to hell. You don't have to track the person down. You don't have to chase the person down. The minute you feel that depression, that's a suicide, rebuke those spirits of suicide. Cast them those spirits of depression to hell for eternity, and all the information that they've stored and gathered to hell for eternity. And then also, when you have a chance to pray, ask God to pray to protect you from those and all similar types for the rest of your life. And then anytime you feel them, but you're not in a place to pray, cast them to hell for eternity, rebuke them to hell for eternity, and do that. Cast them away and rebuke. And what you'll see is you'll start to have what the way that I've learned is how these demons operate, and how these specific demons. Some demons are like immediate and like overwhelming, like demons of theft or murder. The minute you're in their presence, you're like, whoa, like what's going on? I'm feeling like really startled or nervous, or I know something's wrong. But from my experience, demons of depression and suicide, they act in a way that is like slow and torturous. So they basically they make you think that you're happy by slowly squeezing off your resources. Like if you were an animal, you would be slowly choked. But you would be, so it's like all your everything is still in front of you that you know is good, but you're slowly being choked out and drained out and starved and parched and all this stuff, and it's to the point where it's like you're running on a treadmill and you want to get off that treadmill, but you're stuck on it because these demons have put you in a spot where you don't even know they're there, but they're keeping you miserable and blocking you from your blessings and your potential with God. Because if Satan can't take you to hell at the end of your life, he at least wants you, he at least wants you to be miserable and not help other people while you're on earth. So that's how you deal with it yourself. You make out lists of what you have and what you need and what you want and blah, blah, blah. And realize and bring yourself to a true state of being where you are in your life. You have so much good stuff. I have video games, jewelry, a car, jobs, clothing. I have potential to call up girls if I wanted to. I'm in a beautiful city surrounded by lots of cool and fun and nice people. And don't allow the devil and Satan or any of his forces or workers to slowly choke you out and put you in a spot where you're chasing a carrot that's not really there, and your body is tired and your mind is tired and you're miserable and tired. It's no good and it's terrible. And there's other ways of getting yourself out of that state besides making lists and doing self-help checks, video games, watching movies with your full attention, memory exercises, listening to music, exercise, physical exercise, cooking, cleaning, all these activities that you set out to do and willingly do on your own routine and your own choice, not based on your neighbors or your bosses or your family, can greatly, because what you'll see is when you go to attack when you set up these plans of things that you want to do, like watch a movie or listen to music or do one of your hobbies, paint or whatever type of art or whatever it is, or cook or clean or exercise or take a 2-hour long bath, whatever it is, use the bathroom to. I wouldn't necessarily recommend masturbation on all seriousnesses, because that crosses into now, if you choose to masturbate as who you are, that is your choice. But on topic of me, masturbation contributes to mental health issues, and it actually robs you of your sexual worth and your ability to attract a worthy mate. So it's kind of like giving, like, as if we all walked around with like 10 coins of our sex life and attracting sexual mates, like masturbation to me would be like Sonic when he gets hit, just dropping all our coins. And I get it that it's like, it makes lots of cool noises and it's appealing, but like from all my experience of prison, before prison, being around prostitutes, being single male, having 3 or 4 girls at once, being in marriage, being committed, like all these different sexual situations, masturbation has never made me feel better about myself, and it's never helped me. All it's given me was some buildup of like I was doing something naughty or bad, and then a release, and then complete letdown and shame and guilt and disgust in myself. And I honestly would recommend someone to try to find a booty call who you guys are both on the same page, where you hook up and no one's cheating and no one's lying to each other, rather than masturbate. But that's just me. And I'm not saying God would support that, but honestly, I gained more and I learned more about myself and my sex life by having a consistent hookup who neither of us were cheating and neither of us were lying to each other than masturbating. Some people would be like, oh, I'd rather masturbate and, not deal with another person. Okay, you can wear condoms. You don't have to worry about STDs. If it's that big of a deal, get the person tested. Get tested yourself. Wear condoms or don't have sex. Abstinence, from my experience, abstinence builds you even of a higher self-worth. It makes you even more attractive and more self-worth and have a better sexual worth of yourself and sexual confidence. Whereas I've heard people say the strategy, like, instead of finding a hookup, instead of doing this or doing that, I would rather just masturbate. For that sake, I'm not going to argue with those people, because it does free you of STDs and it makes it so you don't have to get involved with other people's lives. But I'm speaking in my philosophies, my theories, and in my context. I would not recommend it as an activity of alleviating depression or suicide thoughts. Now, if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a sexual partner and you choose that, that may work. But for this activity, hobbies, cleaning, music, cooking, driving, going on a drive, going out to your hobbies, whatever, don't do something that and you'll see that these demons may try to stop you. The demons that are attacking you may try to stop you. They might attack you with sudden attacks of laziness or anxiety or worry or guilt when you're setting up your video game console, while you're setting up your paints. But follow through and do the activity. Don't allow Satan and the devil and all his workers to stop you from breaking those curses and breaking those chains of those demons of depression and guilt, of laziness and anxiety and suicide. And after you'll see that after you begin praying against these spirits, because at the very root, they're demons. That's what they are. Even if you can figure out the situations, whether it's money or living or certain people or whatever that's causing them, at the very root, they're demons. And that's what you have to acknowledge them as. Now, if you later on discover that it's certain people, or it's your family, or if it's, because usually demons come at you through some witch or a sorcerer, not through just random time and space. Usually Satan and his demons are at peace by themselves, but it's usually there's some type of medium, some type of witch or sorcerer, a human medium who is conducting those demons toward an area or a person. Unfortunately, that's the case. It can be a person over a whole apartment complex. It can be a family member over their whole family. It can be an employer. It can be someone that you randomly just met. And one of the ways that I learned this is that when I got older and I got into a happy part of my life, I lived with a woman. I started renting a room from her, and she literally basically bragged about me, about how her son had committed suicide. And I was so taken aback, and almost within a couple days of living with this woman, I felt suicidal spirits coming over my mind. And I mean, it's one thing to feel depressed or lost or angry or not good enough, but I hadn't felt suicidal, like I was ready to kill myself and see God because I had nothing else to live for, since I was a teenager. And the last time that I felt that way was when I lived with my own immediate family, and I'm going to cut it off there because I don't want to get too personal. But basically, I believe that there was either members of my neighbors or family that their interests were satanic. They didn't care about my life, and they picked an easy target, a young person who was struggling, and they decided to attack them with spirits of suicide and depression. And I was so young and so like naive at the time that to me, I thought this was how I was really feeling. I thought this was I thought that was how I was really actually thinking and believing. I didn't realize that I was 15 or 16 and I should be giving it 100% to go to college and be giving it, all this opportunity I had in front of my life for all my dreams. Here I was 15 years old, 16 years old thinking, oh, I'm ready to die. No, that was demons. I wasn't even really a born again Christian yet. And I had no idea that this was a demonic and satanic attack. And so once 10 years later, 15 years later, I move into this room as this independent adult, and I'm around this lady who's bragging to me how her son committed suicide. And within a couple of days, all of a sudden I'm feeling suicidal. Like, what is my life? What is this? What is that? And I finally come to realize, okay, not only do all good things come from God, and that is obviously a bad thing, so I know right off the bat that it's a demon and I'm going to attack it as such, but also it's a form of witchcraft. So other words, I learned that some witches are murder witches, some witches are whatever. Some witches just enjoy Satan's presence and they worship and do pentagrams and whatever. I'm in no form affiliated besides as a Christian, my knowledge and experience living around them, but I'm not a member of any witchcrafts. I've been offered and, by my spirit to join or whatever, but no, I'm not, unfortunately, I love all human beings, but I'm not a witch. I have no affiliation to any witchcraft groups or families or sorcery or anything of the sort. But what I learned was that this was a specific type of witchcraft and sorcery, suicide and depression. So attack it as such. Don't go after the person. You need to attack the demons. If you try to attack the person, it will become it will become too much. You'll become violent and insane. You have to attack the demons. And eventually you have to trust God to fight the parts of the battles that you aren't there to fight. It isn't like you're in a fist fight and you're about to fight this person in the street. These are spiritual battles. You were living somewhere peacefully. You have the right to live there peacefully or work there peacefully or travel there peacefully, but you need to attack the demons, the evil spirits that are attacking you. Not trying to take it to the physical realm is usually, it turns into some type of some type of wild goose chase, and I wouldn't recommend it, because at that point when you do something like that, you can't always satisfy the desire to stop a physical witch by physicality. You can't go kick it. Like, I've seen videos. Okay, one example of this is when I lived in California, there was 2 Christian witches, whatever, upstairs. Anyways, the male of the couple I still haven't really figured out if the female was good or not, to be honest. But the male of the couple tested my nerves. I grew up around Southsiders, and a lot of my best friends were Sureños. I went to prison with Southsiders. And in Sacramento, where I lived, a scrap is like calling a black person the N-word to a Southsider. And it to do something to someone who either dresses like a Southsider, is affiliated with Southsiders, or is a Southsider, is like I said, it's like calling a black person the N-word. So it just is the most. So this kid who lives above us, is like saying scrap out loud and like doing this type of thing out loud, and to the point where like me and my neighbors are ready to bang on his door and like pull him out of his apartment. See, there's no value in that. Another example would be like, there's a video of, the point is if you live somewhere or work in a place where someone is physically bullying you, and if you don't want to face them physically, then you need to either report it to the authorities, to the police, to the landlord, or to your boss, and have it dealt with. If it's in the physical world that they are attacking you or touching you or doing this or doing that, and you don't feel strong enough or brave enough to fight back, then you need to pray about it and then take it to the level that you feel like is the next step, because you shouldn't be treated that way. Now, spiritual battles are not the same. From my experience, don't be tempted into taking the spiritual battles into the physical realm, because most of the time, witches and sorcerers who are attacking you in the spiritual realm, they don't want to fight you. They don't want to fight you in the physical realm. So when you take it to the physical realm, it can sometimes be victorious. But if it's in a place that you live or you work or you travel normally, you don't necessarily want to have that on yourself as like, oh, it could easily get flipped on you. It could either be a huge victory and it could either be a huge victory and like a monumental growth, or it could also be like a giant loss where it gets flipped on you and you get arrested, or you get jumped, or you get robbed, or you get humiliated because you took this spiritual mental illness from the devil that someone is using against you, and you took it to the physical realm. And this person, sometimes, like I said, but my recommendation is to leave it spiritual. Rebuke the demons, pray about it, and continue to allow God to, because you have a right to be where you are, and the righteous will inherit the land. So I believe God will deliver the place that you are, or the place you are going, or the place you're traveling, into a place of comfort and safety for you. And if not, you may want to, and not that God doesn't have the power, but if it's what the Bible says in the book of Matthew, is that, if you're in a place, if you travel to a place and you aren't welcome there, it basically says, when you leave, dust off your feet and leave. And that's again, that's going to be against them. God's going to take that against them. It's not going to, it said it'll be worse for them, like it was in the day of judgment, like it was for Sodom and Gomorrah. And so, that is if you're, traveling somewhere, if someone welcomes you into their home or town, you're looking for, et cetera, et cetera. So now, all that's dealing with it yourself. It is a whole nother situation dealing with someone who is suicidal or is threatening of suicide. My recommendation is if you have someone in your life and you want to help them, you need to be at a stable place yourself. And right off the bat, that is about it. The next step that you need to do is take this person to an institution. Take this person to trained professionals. Get this person Don't attack them. Don't tell them, oh, you're stupid or wrong. Tell them, look, I care about you and I love you. And the fact that you're either threatening to commit suicide or committing or talking about suicide or acting suicidal, you need to go into a trained professional help. Why? I tried to fight it myself I've done it on multiple occasions. And what happens is you either, you basically, it goes in two directions from my experience. The first one, is when I was 19 or 20, 18, 19 or 20. And I was traveling, there was a younger than me teenage boy, and he was walking on the side of the road. And the young Christian that I wanted to help every person that I saw in need. Every person I saw in need or in a situation that looked kind of tough, I wanted to help them, and I wanted to do what I could for them. And so what happened was, I see this kid walking on the side of the road who's like out in the middle of nowhere, like literally in a part of California where it's like fields. It's probably like 10 or 15 minutes from towns and cities like Folsom and Sacramento. But it's like Ione, White Walk Road, Latrobe. It's in between like Elk Grove and Sacramento and Folsom. And it's basically like a bunch of fields, a boys ranch, a farm, etc., etc. Oh my God, excuse me, I'm so sorry. That's so embarrassing. And I'm so sorry. I do my best to control my body, but it's really confusing. And I would never put it on anyone else or anything like that. And that's embarrassing. I'm so sorry. And so I'm driving down the road. I don't remember what for. I think it was like to drop off something for somebody or do something like that. And I see a kid walking on the side of the road, and I pull over, I pick him up, and sure enough, he's suicidal. He's run away from home. He's on the run. And I should have immediately figured out, because I decided to pull over and help him in the first place, what I should have done was get on my cell phone or get on my some type of call the local mental hospitals. There's or take him somewhere. Or I should have said this: hey, I want to help you, but because I shouldn't have really chosen to pull over and do that, in my opinion. But doing so that I did, the choices that I should have gone from there, and I should have said, hey, look, I love you and I care about you, but I don't know how to help you, and I don't have the resources to help you or your family. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a local mental hospital or a local charity or some type of situation, and we're going to take you there, and we're going to get you checked in. And from there, they would give him clothes, meds, shelter. He could get away from his family as long as he needed to. They would properly address it. Every time I've ever heard people talk about their suicide or their suicidal tendencies or their dealt with depression or suicide, almost every time I've never heard them talk about success stories because of normal people or family or friends. I've always heard of I eventually was checked into a self-help center, or I was eventually checked into a mental hospital, or I was eventually checked into a some type of program, and that's what saved me. Because those people are trained professionals who can give them... What really helps is to get into a situation, for my opinion, of fresh people, fresh area, fresh minds, people who aren't going to judge you or tell you what to do is right and wrong. And so what happened with this kid was, I ended up driving back and forth and to and from, and his family got involved, and they wanted me to drive him one place and he didn't want to go there, and they didn't want him, and money and gas money. It was a mess. And I didn't really learn anything from it. And I don't think I really helped anyone besides, and if I did, God is good, but like, don't try to do it if you aren't a trained, like, people are literally paid waiting in hospitals to take these 5150 suicidal people off take them, to help them and assist them. Because there's a big difference between being a runaway and being suicidal. And this kid was suicidal. So that is my first big experience. And looking back on it, I wasted a lot of time. I wasted a lot of worry and gas. Now, I'm not saying his life wasn't worth it, but I honestly think that he was manipulating both me and his mom. And in order, and we both kind of got drug around, or she drug us around, and it just wasn't what he should have been taken to a facility and checked in if he was suicidal. And the next one was with my ex-wife, and she had been suicidal before in the past. And when I first met her, she told me that she was planning on killing herself at age 34 or 35. And that destroyed me. And I fell in, I mean, not only that, but like, that just made me so sad, because I believed her 100% the way that she told it to me. And just the like, I took it upon myself as her husband a year and a half later, to be every type of help for her as she could. Now, where the problem occurred was she still was going to a psychiatrist who basically was not in my best interest, and giving her, she should have gotten off the meds, and she should have done what I said. Now, as Strickler, as military as that sounds, if she really wanted to stay married for me for the rest of her life, it would have worked. But she did not do that. She went back to this doctor, she got on psych meds, and then she came home and she pretended to, she stuck her foot in all different, for half the time she listened to me, half the time she listened to the doctor. Her mind was still screwed up from the psych meds, and then she was still threatening suicide as a way to win arguments and yank me around. Was she ever actually suicidal? I don't know. But what happened was, she would wrap bags. I mean, this was like serious domestic violence. It started with me getting beat up by her. And it ended with the whole community in my family thinking that I was an abusive husband, which is insane, because it's so far from the truth. So if you don't want to listen to this and you're tired of my video, let me summarize it. If you're dealing with any type of suicide in your immediate family or relationships, you need to tell them you love them and get them to a facility. Don't tell them they're crazy. Don't tell them they're stupid. Be like, hey, I love you, and this is what's going to help. Get them to a mental health. Get them, call numbers. Get them to a facility with trained professionals who can medicate them and house them. And because being in their immediate circle and trying to be the one to save them it has not had success in my past. And it always leads to someone saying either, well, do it then. Just do it if you're ready to do it. Or someone saying, it being turned against the person trying to help them. So what happens is, so what happened with me, and the reason I'm warning you not to do this is, you might want to be the hero and you might want to be the one to try to save them. But if it's that bad that they're either threatening to kill themselves or hurt you, I'm telling you, just do yourself the favor. Because what happened to me was, my wife, first she beat on me. She didn't threaten suicide at first. She just started beating on me when we had arguments. She started hitting me with guitars objects. She cut the cat's face open. She hit me while I'm sleeping. She hit me with, I'm pretty sure she dropped weights on me while I was drunk asleep. She did all kinds of violence, to the point where I eventually tried to restrain her. And then to the point where anytime I was restraining her, she would physically try to hurt herself so she could report me as hurting her. So by me trying to be the hero and stop her from hurting herself and our animals in our house and our apartment and me, it eventually pushed her. It took our chances at a romantic relationship and turned it into either a parent-child relationship or a police-criminal relationship. At which point, the real police believe her over me, which is, well, they didn't necessarily believe her over me, but the courts and the police favored her when she was the 150% antagonizer, which is insane. So, like I said, if it's in your immediate family or friends or whatever, take them to a facility. Tell them you love them. Tell them this is the best solution, and that's how they're going to get help. If you have to fear this person meeting someone else at that facility, or if it's your immediate family, I mean, they're not. If it's your immediate family, they're not going to kill themselves at this place. I seriously doubt they would get away with that. If it's your loved one and you have to fear, if it's your best friend, what are they going to do? Meet a new best friend at this facility and then maybe they didn't deserve to be your best friend in the first place. If you love them so much that you're trying to help them with their suicide, and then they meet a new best friend at this place, they probably don't deserve to be your best friend in the first place, and they're probably toxic. Same theory applies if they're same theory applies as if they're your loved one or your romantic significant other. If you care about them enough to try to help them with suicidal thoughts or suicidal, if they're threatening suicide, and their response to that is to meet someone new in this facility that you're trying to take them to or whatever, you deserve if you even have to worry about that, chances are you deserve better. They don't deserve to be with you, and you are actually making a cleaner break away from a toxic relationship, instead of being like, oh, I need to keep that person trapped with me at home and make sure they don't meet anyone, and I need to be their hero. Because if that's the case, you deserve better, and it sounds like they're probably toxic. So, carrying on. With my ex-wife, love her, miss her. I don't necessarily want to lie and be like, oh, I hope you're happy, because then it'd be like, basically, you screwed me over and you're still happy. But I'm not trying to put any evil on her. But for who she was when I loved her, I still love her, I still miss her. But like, what ended up happening was I was afraid to let her go out and get help, or not afraid to let her, and I was afraid to encourage it, because I didn't want to lose her. So I felt like I needed to do it myself. So my route was get off the psych meds and follow what I say. Stop trying to go out to bars. Stop trying to go out to clubs when I don't trust you. Stop logging into your old Facebook. Stop going on dating apps, and follow what I say. And you will eventually get my trust and we'll be happy. If you can't be the head of the relationship, you have to trust my judgment calls. That was how our marriage was going to work. She did the exact opposite. She went to the psych meds. She still went on all the apps and all that stuff that ruined my trust. And she just went completely psycho. So she now, in a more serious note, why I don't recommend this is her threats of suicide and violence not only got turned and put onto me into the point of me getting okay, so it started with her, like, I would say, have a drink and go to bed, relax, smoke some weed with me, like, I tried to use my own types of medication with her, honestly. I thought, hey, she instead of her using all these meds, I'll medicate her with some alcohol or some weed. We can have sex, go to bed, and be happy together. Did not work. It ended up turning into a situation where she would try to swallow bottlefuls of pills at the same time as chugging alcohol, which could easily be fatal and has been fatal for people, to the point where I had to gag her with my hands and with my fingers and make her. I was literally doing police work with her. Like, when you go to the cops, when you get arrested, if you're suicidal, the cops have to basically hold you to the ground and physically prevent you from hurting yourself, to the point where you'll either be put in a chair that restrains you, or you'll get this thing that's called the vest, the suicide vest, and it's this big green vest that's so heavy that you can't stab yourself or fight or whatever. I was basically doing all that type of insane inmate. I was doing like police, like jail guard work for free at my house with my wife. I was stopping her from hurting the cats. I was stopping her from attacking me. I was stopping her, and I have all photo evidence to prove this. I was stopping her from cutting her own stomach, cutting her own wrists, destroying our property. There was multiple occasions where she destroyed our TVs, and we would just spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars replacing stuff that she destroyed during these episodes of rage that she had. Now, be it so, she had an extremely screwed off childhood. According to her and her family, it involved rape, molestation, being left with, as a child, with teenage boys in rooms, with handymen by her mother. Both her parents died before she was 13 or 14. One of them died in her presence. Like, she woke up and her mom was dead in the other room from a heart attack when she was a baby, like 8 years old or something like that. Her dad died at a younger age. If what she told me is true, she had a screwed off childhood, and I did not have any type of childhood like that. And that is part of the reason why I felt so obligated as her husband to help her. Now, as I stated at the beginning of the video, it got to a point where she could either grow from those wounds and be a productive member of society, or she could victimize people the same way that she was victimized herself. And unfortunately for her, at that point of her life, she chose to continue to victimize and hurt people herself. I gave her everything, like she had given everything to me, but when it came points to meet up and say, okay, we're either going to do this or not, she chose not to do it. I compromised everything to her. I gave her passwords, accounts, phone numbers, pictures, all my life to her, and she took it all and threw it down the toilet, and she took all of hers and made it a big secret. And it was like this, and then she went this way instead of staying on the path. That's her choice. I wish it would have worked. I still would want to be with her, but she chose to go her own way and to make it as miserable and terrible for me as possible for the last year we lived together. So the reason why, unless you for some reason want to go through that yourself, which, I love who it made me, but I wouldn't, it's almost kind of selfish of me to say that I wouldn't want other people to get to the same perspective as in life that I am. But if you want to get but from my experience, if you don't want to deal with years of violence and heartbreak and confusion, you may just want to, as soon as your immediate family or loved one threatens suicide or says they're suicidal, get them to a facility. Call a hotline. Get them checked in somewhere. Do it out of love. Don't let it get to a point like with my ex-wife where she's wrapping bags around her head. She's wrapping belts around her head. She's beating me with the belt with the bag around her head. She's cutting her wrists. She's doing Blair Witch marks on her stomach. She's dealing with the demons of her childhood, and now she's blaming it on the person who tried to save her. She's swallowing whole bottles of pills and chugging alcohol. And then an hour later, because I grabbed her and I took all these pills out of her mouth and I held her wrists on the ground, she calls the cops, and the cops want to arrest me for beating her up. That's how screwed off our reality came. It even got to a point one morning, and I've told this multiple times in my videos because it was really a big part of my life. She was threatening to cut her own wrists, and I finally I had fought her battle, her suicide battle for her so long. This morning, I said, you know what, Zoe? Excuse me, I don't mean to bring up her name. I apologize. I said, you know what? I'm tired of it. I'm done believing your lies. You're not going to kill yourself. I doubt that you're going to kill yourself. I don't think that you're going to. I basically called her out as bull crap and that she's a liar and that she wouldn't actually do it. And what does she do? She picks up this little 3 or 4 inch paring knife and she jumps across the room and cuts my arm wide open to the point where I have to go to the emergency room, and it's like an arterial bleed or whatever, because I was never told directly that it was an arterial bleed, but if you look where arteries are, it's in the exact spot where I was sliced open and stabbed. And also the way that it poured out blood after all my skateboarding accidents, after all my fights, after every cut wound or wound that I've ever received, I had never seen it bleed like this one. Like the minute that knife came, sorry, these two securities just had a showdown. The way that it bled, it was just like whoop whoop whoop, and like the when I've seen these videos, shout out to one of my favorite channels, Active Self Protection, ASP. They've posted videos where people receive wounds that produce arterial bleeds, and they bleed so fast, and the way that they pulse is the same that I remember it that day. Because I'm sitting there and she's at the kitchen counter with the knife on her wrist, and I basically told her to screw off, that I was done with her games. It's like 3 a.m, right? And she's on her meds. I'm hungover and coming off marijuana, no serious drugs, like normal acceptable levels of drug use in anyone's personal life of marijuana and alcohol. And we've been fighting for like 2 years straight over this girl's scars and over this girl's like drama that she will not stop bringing into the house. And I basically told her screw. And usually what we would do is I would go and jump for the knife, and we'd wrestle over the knife, and then I would hold her down and she would chill out, or she would get up and run out of the house topless and go to her car, or she would put on maybe not topless, the most skimpy ripped up shirt, and then go run around the apartment complex and demand attention and act like a victim. It was so, and I wouldn't. That's why I'm saying, unless you want to deal with that type of Stockholm syndrome, where like the whole. I don't know what the right word because Stockholm syndrome means you sympathize with the people who captured you. So that's not the right word. But if you want to deal with that level of evil where you are literally trying to help someone out of their childhood trauma and out of their suicidal tendencies, and they go so far as to have the whole neighborhood and law enforcement and local and everyone, even your own family, think that you're domestically violent and abusing them, it's insane. So it makes you like want to fight the whole world, and it was one of the most heartbreaking and sad moments in my life when I just realized that like how many people were who just didn't care if I died, basically. And even to the point wanted me to die. Like within weeks after she stabbed me, people were basically just like, yeah, so like she almost killed me. She probably could have killed me and got away with it. And she probably would have happily got away with it. Excuse me again. I'm doing my best to control my body. And instead, it was like she was the victim. Within weeks of her threatening to kill herself, nearly killing me, and me trying to help her, I was already the abusive bad guy, which was 0% true. So my point is, if I would have just taken her, see, I lost her in the end anyways. She was so toxic and so evil and so selfish. I loved her so much, I was afraid to lose her and take her to an outpatient, an inpatient, and take her to a facility because I thought, oh, she's going to meet someone or she's going to flirt with someone or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, if I have that big of a trust issue and a fear to where I'm afraid now the best thing for an immediate family or loved one or best friend or whatever is get them to a facility. If you have that big of trust issues with them where you're afraid to lose them because they're going to that facility, you probably deserve better, and you got to be ready to make that break. You got to be ready to realize that they might never stop using you as their scapegoat, and they might not ever stop stepping on you. Now at the end result, they'll probably get help and get healthy. But if they do meet someone, or who knows, you guys might end up, they might not. They might end up missing you and loving you and being like, hey babe, I miss you, or hey family, I love you, thank you so much, or hey best friend, I miss you so much. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And you're still my best friend, and thank you so much. And it might be perfect in storybook. But whatever the case, I don't recommend you trying to do it yourself. Now, there's the other side of it where you might lose this person as your best friend or as your favorite family member or as your loved one. But realize that if they're suicidal or so depressed like that, and you are in a position where you want to help them, and if you actually want to help them, commit them to get them into a facility. Or because if you are afraid to lose them by them going to a facility in so much that you don't want them to go to a facility, then you deserve better. You don't deserve to be in a relationship where someone is threatening to kill themselves and ruining your life because they can't be stable. I know it's hurtful. I know it's tough, but trust me, you will grow. You will become stronger. You become more self-confident. And I have never been so happy and so confident with my own purpose in my own life until after I left my ex-wife actually left me. So, any questions? I don't have any links to suicide hotlines or anything like that. I apologize for any bodily functions or drinking during the video. I do my best to control it and be polite and be respectful but it's tough with all the different stuff that have gone on with my body with different witchcraft and different, people making me fart and making me, it's insane. No, I'm not pointing. It's just, I do my best to control my body, and I have 100% trust in God that he's healing my body and bringing stability and longevity to my body. And again, it's not supposed to be insulting or rude towards any of my audience. Hopefully, at the very least, it's humorous or nothing at all. So, yeah, if you have any type of suicide in your own life, go to the front of the video, or depression. Hear out my part on that. If you need help, go get help. If you're dealing it with anyone else, get them committed to a facility. Don't try to do it yourself. These people get paid big time money, and it is their job. They get to go home and have all their life. You don't deserve to have your normal life chained down by someone else's suicide or depression. You just don't. So just, don't that, yeah. And don't be afraid that you might, if you're so afraid that you might lose this person as a best friend or as a loved one, you deserve better. If they cared about you as much as you cared about them, that you're trying to stop them from killing themselves, and they're going to go off somewhere and meet someone new, then you deserve better. You're going to save them from their suicide, and you're going to become a bigger, wiser, stronger person because of it. Praise God, Jesus Christ. Have a great night, and post, like, and subscribe, please.